Today is Tuesday, May the 12th, and this is the Daily Word from Redeemer Bible Church. My name is Dale. I'm one of the pastors here at Redeemer Bible Church, and I want to thank you for joining me today as we discuss 3 points in our daily reading. We have the triumphal entry of Jesus going into the city of Jerusalem. I'm sure that was quite a scene, but it quickly turns into Jesus condemning and judging and even crying over Jerusalem. So let's get into it. So as Jesus leaves Jericho and starts to head up that 17-mile journey on that Roman road, he, about 2 miles out of the city, tells a couple of his disciples to go and get him a colt, which is another word for donkey. And he told those two, he said, and if the owner of the donkey says anything like, "Why are you taking my donkey?" just tell them that it's for the Lord. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And I often wonder, were his disciples continually amazed but that Jesus not only could see into the future and tell them what was going to happen, or did they get used to it? I have to believe that they were continually amazed, probably looking at each other once the owner of that donkey asked the exact same question that Jesus said that he would ask, and they had to have looked at each other with amazement, like, who is this? Who is this Jesus? Who is this guy? Furthering their faith in who Jesus was. And as Jesus starts to enter into the city, lots of his disciples throughout the city welcomed him, saying, "Hosanna, Hosanna, glory to the God in the highest," coronating Jesus as king. And it's interesting, the Pharisees are there, of course. The Pharisees were always very close to Jesus, watching him, making sure that he wasn't breaking the law. They called on Jesus to rebuke his disciples. And it's what Jesus says to them is, if they didn't worship me, the very stones of this city would. Putting the Pharisees right back in their place. The Pharisees just missed who Jesus was. And whether that be because they were caught up in their religious system, or whether they were afraid of losing power, whatever the reason was, that they just missed who Jesus was. Jesus, right after being welcomed by his disciples, he weeps over Jerusalem, and he actually casts judgment upon the city. Here's what it says: when he drew near and saw the city, this is verse 41, he wept over it, saying, "Would that you, even you, had known on this day the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes." Meaning, I am the Prince of Peace, but you don't get it. You're not seeing who this is, who I am. And for the days will come upon you when your enemies will set up a barricade around you and surround you and hem you in on every side. And obviously that's exactly what happened in 70 AD, and the temple was destroyed, and the Jews were cast out of Jerusalem. So right after that, and to finish up our reading for the day, Jesus goes in and he cleanses the temple, casting further judgment on their religious system, letting them know that they completely missed who God is and what he expected from them and wanted for them. And the irony of this is they actually had God right in front of them, telling them, showing them what it was to be a follower of God, what it was to live in faith, and they just missed it. And it's interesting because religious people today, they fall victim to the very same hypocrisy, saying that they follow God and that they love God, but really what they love is the religiosity of their system. They love being religious more than they love God. So whether that's they love the money that's involved there, that's true for some, or they love the attention that it gives them, the power that it gets them, regardless of the reason. The reality is that when you love your religion more than you love God, you are in big trouble. And that's the crux of what Jesus is saying here to end out Luke 19. So the final week of Jesus' life on earth has begun. And it starts with his triumphal entry and this coronation of the king. But it quickly turns into a condemnation that Jesus has over the nation of Israel, and especially the religious leaders. So for us, what does this mean for us today? It means we need to be on guard. We need to be on guard of how we see Jesus. We need to see Jesus for who he really is. He is the Lord who not only sought us out like we learned yesterday, but he is the God who saves, and he's a God who adopts kids into his family. And his expectation for us is to do what? Is to love him and to love others. And what does love look like? Well, love is never self-serving. Love is always focused on serving God and then loving our neighbors like we already love ourselves. And that's what the religious people of his day missed about the message from their Messiah. And frankly, that's what religious people miss today from the message of God and the call that he places on people to worship him and to live out their lives loving other people, putting other people in front of themselves. To be a follower of Christ means you die to yourself. And what Jesus was pronouncing here in chapter 19 of Luke, is that Jerusalem and the leaders, the religious leaders especially, were all about themselves. They were not about other people. They were about bringing themselves up, lifting themselves up into power, negotiating with their captive rulers and the Romans. And we'll see this soon in the text where they actually make a deal with the Romans to have Jesus crucified. They just missed it. They missed who he is. I didn't say was, because he continues to live to this day. They just missed who Jesus is. And sadly, today that still happens. People just miss it. They don't see him for who he truly is. So hopefully, as we continue to read this week through his last week of ministry on earth, you will see Jesus for who he is, and you will continue to be amazed. Just like those disciples who went and fetched that donkey were amazed by everything he says and everything he does that comes to pass. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you tomorrow.